Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Laws, rules, regulations, norms. I repeat, laws, rules, regulations, norms. All of these are bound in order to guarantee decency and order and stability in society. And when I say society, I mean society in every given context, civil or ecclesiastical. So that is the reason we have laws to guide our conduct, so that I wouldn't go beyond my own bounds and you wouldn't go beyond your own bounds, and then there is harmony and coexistence that is very, very okay between people. However, sometimes laws could be applied so rigidly that instead of serving the good of people, the good of man, it becomes very oppressive. And that is why we think or talk about contextualization. In other words, the concrete application of the law to given circumstances, meaning that you have to consider the circumstances when you are about to apply the law. The law exists in principle, but you wouldn't apply it in all circumstances because circumstances have to inform the concrete application of laws. In other words, what applies in this given moment may not apply in all circumstances, even though in principle it is the law. And that is the reason, very often in the scriptures, in the Gospels, our Lord Jesus Christ was always mad at the Pharisees and the scribes because they were so rigid. They always held so rigidly to the letters of the law, disregarding the spirit behind the law. And the spirit behind the law has precedence, has priority over the letters of the law. And that is the reason our Lord will tell us that the law was meant for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath is there for the Son of Man, not the other way around. In other words, the law has to serve the good of people, not to make life more miserable for them. And therefore, our Lord is simply saying that, yes, we have to respect the law, but we should not forget the fact that compassion, mercy, charity, empathy, all these have precedence over the law. And in fact, they inform the law. If a law is not informed by compassion, if a law is not informed by empathy, if a law is not informed by a sense of humanity, then it is counterproductive, it is dysfunctional, and therefore should be disregarded. Look at what we see in the gospel reading of today's Mass, a man with a withered hand, a situation that ordinarily should evoke pity or compassion or empathy in the minds of every normal human being. Yet, the Pharisees and the Herodians are so rigid, so much attached to their norms and rules and regulations that they are mad at our Lord that he wants to heal a man on a Sabbath. And you saw the question that our Lord put to them. Is it lawful to do good? This is the spirit behind the law. Is it lawful to do good or to do evil on a Sabbath? Yeah, the law says you should not work. But is it unlawful to do good on a Sabbath? The answer is obvious. They wouldn't say anything. And our Lord heals the young man. And then instead of glorifying God for the miraculous, work he has done, they go out to conspire against our Lord. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, the Lord is simply telling us that sometimes we need to rise above conventionalism. We need to rise above legalism. We need to rise above what the law says and consider the given circumstance and react accordingly. Show mercy, show empathy, show compassion. There was a medical doctor that went to the hospital to save a dying man. During a time, the doctors were on strike. His fellow doctors were mad at him that he had broken their laws, because their law was that nobody should work since we are all on strike. But when this doctor heard that there was an emergency case and the patient was in a very critical situation or condition, he disregarded the strike and went to the hospital to save the life of this dying patient. His colleagues were mad at him. This is a classical example of what we see in the gospel reading of today, that there is a case that requires action, and the immediate one at that. And some people are saying it should not be done on a Sabbath. And our Lord says, stretch out your hand. I have to do good, even if it is on a Sabbath. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes we play the Pharisees in our own giving context, even where we work, even in our places of work, in the places we live, in society, we play the Pharisees, we play the Herodians. When we hold so tenaciously to what the law says, to what the custom says, to what the practice says, to what convention says, and we allow all of these to kind of becloud our sense of compassion, our sentiments of empathy, our sentiments of understanding towards other people. The Lord tells us today that much as we should respect laws, we should also know that the spirit behind the law is more important than the laws themselves. This message is very important, especially when we think of the problem of immigration in our society today. The law says you don't enter our country illegally. The law says you don't come in anyhow. But what about those cases that are exceptional, when people are fleeing violence in their various countries? When we have cases of refugees who are being killed in their countries for their religious beliefs or for other considerations? What about those that are fleeing drug violence or persecution? We have some such cases, but sometimes you find Christians, Catholics, and strong Christians who profess their faith, but when these cases are there before us, they say, no, we have to respect the law, don't come in. Our Lord is telling us that we should reach out to others and help them, sometimes putting aside the law.